Our theme for this month of December is joy. It is a sweet theme for this month filled with holiday celebrations and delicious foods and time with family and friends. As I sat down this week to explore joy, I realized it's a little bit slippery of a thing to describe. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that joy is very similar to spiritual experience in its slipperiness. My favorite description of spiritual experience comes from William James. He was really the first person to study the psychology of religion. And through hundreds, maybe thousands of interviews, he took a stab at defining what is this spiritual or religious experience. He came up with 4 components, and I add a 5th. But each of these components of spiritual experience seems to also apply directly to joy. First, spiritual experiences are transient. The experience is temporary, and we eventually return to a normal state of being. And because of that, the experience feels as if we've momentarily been in a different space in a different time. Second, spiritual experiences are ineffable. Try as we may, we cannot adequately put them into words. That definitely sounds like joy to me. Third, spiritual experiences are noetic. It's an unusual word. Noetic means that we feel that we've learned something valuable from the experience, some knowledge that is normally hidden from our understanding. And fourth, spiritual experience is passive. It's outside of our conscious control. There are activities we can do like meditation or going to a beautiful place that make those experiences more likely, but we cannot turn it on and off like a switch at will. Wouldn't it be nice if there were a joy switch that we could just flip on every once in a while? And the 5th aspect that I add is that spiritual experience usually entails a sense of connection between ourselves and the wider world. So I'm going to recap those, and you tell me if it sounds like joy or not. It's temporary, it's beyond description, it gives you insight, it's out of our control mostly, and it connects us with others. Beyond this being a generally jolly, joyous time of year, joy is really something akin to spirituality. It is absolutely worthy of our attention in a worship service. Now, speaking about joy, let's talk a little bit about gifts, as we heard a little bit from Scott. Though we know this, it bears repeating. Perhaps I need to say it aloud from the pulpit for it to sink into my own dense skull. Money cannot buy happiness, and most gifts can't either. I will share an unpopular opinion this time of year. Gift giving and gift receiving are often an awkward social obligation. I'm not trying to get all grinchy. When it comes to Christmas, sometimes the beautifully wrapped packages and the anticipation they offer, in a way, are better than the actual gift inside. Just like when we finally get that object that we've been desiring for months, actually owning that thing rarely ever lives up to how we thought it would make us feel. We realize that a huge amount of the pleasure is in the anticipation of it all. It is the thought that counts. And I don't mean remembering that I need to fulfill this social obligation and get you something. I mean when a gift demonstrates particular thought and care. That can be joyful for both the giver and the receiver. When material gifts are special, it's because someone we love has made them special through the thought, the effort, possibly by making it something extravagant. But it's the effort rather than the price tag that matters. This year, the gift that I'm excited about giving both my niece and my nephew are Crocs. I like the idea of giving them goofy charms, and especially the idea of my nephew having flashlights attached to his feet just sounds magnificent. Most of all, I delight in the idea of us getting to don our horribly unfashionable but comfy footwear together when I see them next. Money can't buy happiness. Occasionally, a thoughtful gift can bring an opportunity for joy to the recipient and the giver alike. Those moments of joy don't last forever, though, like I said. Joy is temporary. We can't be permanently in a state of joy, but there's something to be said for finding that occasional joy in activities that are regular. I imagine some of you have as well, but I've been watching the most recent series of The Crown on Netflix. If you're not familiar, it's a dramatic portrayal of the life of the royal family. Of course, it is dripping in opulence and upper-class sophistication and good taste. But one of the scenes that jumped out at me this week was a scene of then Prince Charles planting a tree in his garden himself, with his own 2 hands alongside one of his many gardeners. It was an interesting reminder that even for those who could do anything in the world or not do anything at all, there's joy in the satisfaction of accomplishing a concrete task like planting a tree. The UU minister, Rev. Meg Barnhouse, wrote a reflection about observing the joy that she hopes to develop in herself. She said that in her neighborhood, workers were building a wall all summer long, and she watched them building brick by brick, one by one with mortar, lining up these bricks, tapping them down. One of these guys was clearly older than the rest, possibly in his 70s. Slender and tall, he moved among the bricklayers, reaching and bending next to them. With each pause, he would stand up straight. Sometimes you would see him placing a hand on another man's back and smiling. Meg observes, it looks like he really loved what he was doing. But what exactly was the source of his joy in all this? Was it the teaching that he loved? Seeing how the students learn and watching their character develop? Did he love the wall itself? Did he know when it would be done and look forward to it being finished? From the consistent smile, she discerned that he must love the process. The feel of the bricks in his hand, the squish of the mortar, the challenge of making the symmetry of pillars and arches, the geometry of it all. She writes, I imagine that he never thinks about the end of the project, the completion of the wall. I think he will go on to the next wall as if it were just a continuation of this one, then the next one, and the next, and never be bored. I want to be like that. Meg refers to her work of ministry as building story on story, like brick on brick. Whether we're still working or retired, we all have routines, efforts that go on and on and on. Sometimes those can feel like Sisyphean tasks. As soon as we finish the project, another one comes along. But rather than waiting for the moment of joy in finishing, I guarantee we will be happier if we're able to cultivate joy in the process. Think of enjoying the grocery store, or enjoying your daily walk, or imagine finding joy in washing dishes. Enjoy the moment. Often our joy comes from the experience of other people as much as what's going on in our own lives, in our own moment. How many of you are familiar with the word schadenfreude? Okay. Even if you don't know the word, it's something that you have probably experienced unless you are a saint. Schadenfreude is the German word for pleasure derived from someone else's misfortune. And it's not totally evil. I know it sounds awful. But it's that sense of, thank goodness it wasn't me. Or, they kind of deserve that. Karma, we say. We've all experienced it, whether we admit it or not. But that's a different sermon. We can also find joy in the opposite way. We can find joy in other people's happiness and success. It's a particular kind of happiness that Buddhists call appreciative joy. Along with compassion, it is one of the key states of mind to cultivate. That's what that meditation was all about. This is a joy that's not weighed down by desires for ourselves or by resentment. It's a purity of happiness for someone else's good fortune, and it is surprisingly challenging sometimes. It's a high goal. Appreciative joy is natural to humans, but it can get neglected and atrophy after a while. Again, with regard to gifts, appreciative joy is the true seat of generosity. Delight in the happiness of others. Among Unitarian Universalist youth and young adults, there's an often cited agreement to don't yuck someone else's yum. You heard that correctly. Don't yuck my yum. If someone really enjoys something that's not doing harm to others, well, let them have it. If you like pineapple on your pizza, knock yourself out. Add some anchovies and black olives while you're at it. If you consume pumpkin spice flavoring like it's oxygen, I hope you enjoy every moment of it. There is nothing to be gained by criticizing someone else's pleasure. And this season is full of particular pleasures and tastes. We have different holiday meals and rituals, different types of trees in our homes, colored lights or white lights, all these important decisions. But go for it. Find your joy in the simple things, revel in it. And don't go raining on someone else's parade, even if it seems really strange. I chose today's unusual responsive reading for a couple of reasons. One is because much of the Christmas story that we're edging our way toward is a reflection of the book of Isaiah. Things like virgin birth, being the Son of God, the name Emmanuel, or God with us. All of those details that we're familiar with come from Isaiah that was written 740 years before. But that's a little geeky, a sidebar. I also pulled that reading today as an invitation to consider our calling to bring good news to the oppressed, to bind up the brokenhearted, to comfort all who mourn, to give them garlands instead of ashes. It's easy, and it's often viewed as more real or more legitimate to be negative in the world. But that doesn't really reflect our Unitarian Universalist faith. Unitarians have consistently believed that people are good, or at least we have the potential to be good and to learn and to grow. And Universalists, their good news was that God would never condemn anyone to eternal suffering. God is good, and in the end, love wins. These are wildly optimistic, joyful perspectives on the world. There's a whole lot of work to do in sharing that joy with the wider world. It's a world in need of justice and fixing. It's also a world in need of a little hope and joy. Maybe you don't always feel like a ray of sunshine. That's totally fine. I appreciate that. But when you do, let it shine forth. If I'm completely honest, I know that isn't my strongest suit. So I'm naming this as a challenge to us together. Find some joy in the simple things, even the ones you do over and over. Whenever you can, cultivate joy in observing other people's happiness, success, and peace. That's just about the purest form of joy there is. And when you find it, man, spread it around, or at least share some with me. Amen.